All right. Did that? We
It's
are
done.
live, Erin.
It's like the little.
I know I didn't do the like 30-second countdown thing today with the had the new music and all that fancy stuff, but I was just like, yeah, no, we're gonna go straight into it. We're just gonna jump right in today. Um,
Instant, instant satisfaction.
yes. So thank you all for joining us. For those of you who are new to the show, this is DevRel is a show about DevRel and all the other jobs kind of related to DevRel, which is the ish part. So like there's for those of you who are in DevRel, you might be aware there's tons of different roles that are kind of DevRel connected or DevRel focused, but don't necessarily have a DevRel title. It's a very broad umbrella. So thus the ish of DevRelish. So my name is Brian. I lead DevRel at a company named LocalStack, and my partner here is well, not partner like partner in DevRelish.
I like
We
partner, like Wild Wild West partner, like howdy
partner, yeah.
partner, partner.
uh, yeah, Aaron, you can introduce yourself.
I'm Erin Staples. I am a senior developer experience engineer at Galileo.
So yeah, so each month we kind of joined by somebody who like has is working in DevRel or DevRel related stuff. This month we are excited to bring on David Neal. So David has been in DevRel. I mean, how long? It's been a long time. I know we've crossed paths numerous times because I've like over the decade at least that you've been doing this. Um, so yeah. So David, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now and kind of like your path into DevRel.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. And yes, I've been in DevRel for quite some time now. My first official developer advocate title came at a startup company 2013, but my involvement in the tech community and speaking at conferences and helping with meetups and stuff started long before that.
Mhm.
So it was, yeah, I joined a startup company and I knew the founders and some of the folks that worked there really well. We had worked at previous companies and they kind of said, "What do you want to do here?" And I said, "Well, there's this cool thing called developer advocacy that's gaining popularity. We didn't really call it developer relations yet, I don't think." Um, and so we worked out a plan and I became like the owner of developer experience and community and speaking at conferences and kind of marketing towards developers and helping with recruiting. That was kind of the part of the reason for me being in that role at that particular company was to try to attract more developers to, you know, help make the company cool. I don't know if I succeeded in that or not, but I had a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, I've worn a lot of hats in my career. Did a lot of software development before getting into developer relations, and I still try to take every opportunity to write software today.
Very cool. So yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that it wasn't called developer relations back then. I mean, I remember when I got started, geez, like a lifetime ago, it was developer evangelism.
Yeah,
That's
we
what we
we were
call.
still kind of like debating whether that was still a good title or not. It's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a weird title, but that was like, that was, but that's, I remember that the earliest folks who started doing it, that's what they called themselves, evangelists. Um, and then that title kind of fell out of favor, probably for the best. I don't think it gives like developer relations to me, like kind of really reflects or the actual like kind of two-way flow of what it's supposed to be like, right? Like it's not me just on a megaphone speaking, right? It's supposed to be like a conversation where I'm sharing stuff, but I'm also bringing stuff back, right? and advocacy and in evangelism kind of both to me reflect this. Like I'm just kind of out there as a megaphone, like, as opposed to a listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think of right now my role, I've been doing almost all like listening. And I think this is the most development I've done in a DevRel role, which I love actually. And it's like very fun because it's like I actually get to like fixing a typo. Like I was actually talking to Cassidy Williams about this a while back, but like I had one of those moments of I fixed a typo in our product today, and that was just like a fun. Like look at this, still got it. This is fun.
Yeah, every once in a while I remind myself that I can still code too.
It's not just for the robots. It's not just for the robots anymore.
Yes,
I like to say.
Exactly. So David, so one of the things I thought was interesting was that you've worked for like you've worked for like a wide variety of companies, both like big and small. I mean, and even now, like you're at Plaid. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what Plaid does, but also like you know, kind of where you've seen like differences in some of how you've approached developer advocacy or relations. Sorry, at various companies and different audiences, different size of
Yeah.
the company, etc.
So over the years, I guess my perspective on the definition of what is developer relations, what is developer whatever, has evolved, and I kind of see developer relations as like a big umbrella where there are all kinds of activities that can happen under this what we call DevRel. And I look at it as kind of a spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum, you've got what I would call developer advocates. They are people who are the liaison for developers to the company. They are very technical focused. They work hands on with APIs and solving problems with other developers, and they're doing tactical things like documentation and SDKs and helping with the developer experience, and just doing anything and everything to reduce the friction that is a developer might experience when trying to adopt or onboard with a new product. At the other end of the spectrum, I would call it developer marketing, where your goal is to increase brand awareness. You're doing talks, you're creating content, you're doing anything that's going to get developers interested in checking out your platform or your service or whatever it is that you're representing. And there is a lot of marketing function in that. Like you still care about developers and what they want and what their needs are, and you may be providing feedback to the product team, but your primary measure of success is like getting people to sign up and getting folks connected. And then somewhere in the middle, there's all kinds of stuff. And one of the roles that I've been in my DevRel career was focused on app ecosystem and partnerships. I worked at ActiveCampaign for a while, leading a DevRel team there, and it wasn't necessarily about developers as we typically think of them. It was more like, hey, we want to increase, the list of apps that are in our marketplace that integrate with our platform. And so the types of developers I was, working with there was all about building integrations, building apps that live in the app store or marketplace for that company. So the more integrations you can build or get people to use for your platform, the more likely they're going to stick around because it creates like a very unique value proposition for that company, right? Because it's like not only do I have Active Campaign, I've got connections to faxing and messaging and all these other services that like nobody can do that for me except this company.
Those are kind of fun ones. I've gotten the absolute pleasure of doing one of those. Like, it wasn't actually a DevRel role; it was a creator community role, is what they called it. And the partnership was very fun for me. Like, I did not expected to love that as much as I did.
Yeah. I remember there was somebody who was asking on like Reddit or something. There's a DevRel like Reddit subreddit, and they were like, well, I need to, where can I find a developer a DevRel person who knows how to do DevRel right? And it's like, and he went into this whole little explanation. I'm like, what? I don't know what you mean, because I've been at a bunch of companies and it's different at every company. How can
It's
I?
different
I
at
can,
every company.
yeah. What needs are like? I think that part of the tricky thing happens is, especially at startups, in my experience, is sometimes they don't have a clear vision of what they expect from DevRel, and so they expect you to just kind of come on and like, oh, we're going to suddenly have all these followers on social media, and we're going to be suddenly have all this, but they don't really have a clear idea of what it is, and or what they expect out of the role beyond just, rapid growth.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear you explain all the variations, I think, that you've experienced in your career. Like even the developer marketing, I think I consider one of those ish parts of like DevRel, right? Like it's so close, but it's just, in my experience, at least, I wasn't one, but like we had one on the team, somebody whose title was developer marketer, and it was just basically DevRel with a lean towards like actually lead generation, right? As opposed to more traditional DevRel that was less about like that marketing aspect and lead generating.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I've done things like developer experience. I've worked on SDKs, built them in multiple languages. I've done documentation. I've done tech support. I've been roped in on calls with salespeople. I've done professional service type engagements where it's like I'm gonna, you know, you don't have the resources to actually build stuff with our APIs, so I'm going to, do a project with you and build, the solution that you need. I've done a lot of what I would call developer marketing, where I worked at Okta for a while and did a bunch of content tutorials and videos and spoke at conferences and did all that. And it was all about, getting developers to sign up for an Okta account. And I talked about the partnership stuff. I worked at Pluralsight for a while. It was more about, developer education. That was a ton of fun while it lasted. And yeah, so most recently I'm at Plaid, and which makes sense. I wear plaid shirts almost every day. It's like that definitely factored into my decision to join the company. Um, but plaid is a different thing too. It's like part of the challenge is like, man, I want to try something new that I haven't done before, and this is financial tech. I've never done anything in financial before. Plaid is what powers a lot of fintech apps. When you log in and you want to connect to your bank or your any other financial institution, you're probably making that connection through Plaid. And so Plaid has a bunch of APIs that they support. I'm actually doing kind of almost like partnership stuff at Plaid, where I'm responsible for the what they call data providers. That's the banks and other financial institutions. There's a federal spec called FDX, Federal Data Exchange, that data providers are supposed to implement in order to be part of, America's lagging behind as they do often in tech, right? There's open banking in Europe. There's not really quite an open banking system in the U.S. yet, but that's where we're going.
Right. Yeah. I asked you what Plaid does, and now that when you like mention it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've used Plaid. I think Plaid when like it's like, oh, we need to confirm with your bank that this is
Mm-hmm.
like verify that you have this account, and it's usually through Plaid, right? So
Yep.
I do remember using it. Very cool. So you're less like speaking to, going to like big developer conferences like, hey, use Plaid kind of thing. You're more focused on a very is like specific community that
Yes.
is working in financial institutions and stuff.
Yep. So, that was one of the things I asked when I was joining the company is like, do y'all go to software developer conferences? Because it's not something important to them. So they're going to like banking events. Like, boy, that sounds exciting. Uh, I don't know that I would be a good speaker for something like that, but there's apparently there is a federal data exchange summit that happens once a year, and maybe I'll.
TIL. Like TIL.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing. And yeah, do they typically have developer type sessions there, or are you not sure yet?
I don't know yet. So I am curious to find out. So this year has been the first year in a long time, like 15 years, that I haven't like been active out in the kind of speaking circuit, speaking at conferences and
Mhm.
events. And it's been a nice break, but I
Yeah,
I do really miss it. I get the
yeah,
FOMO, right? Like I saw, recently a bunch of people at Kansas City Developer Conference, and I've been there every year for like years and years, and seeing some of the posts about that is like, ah, man,
yeah. I was
I,
there, but I mean, lately, like if I'm at a conference, honestly, most of the time nowadays, it's I'm just working the booth.
yeah,
Because even that conference, we had a talk with our like part of our sponsorship included a talk, but I gave that to my team because I mean I'm like if they want to do it, I'd rather it be them than me. I'm happy to be, you know, manager duties for the most part,
yeah.
as opposed to like, I don't. I've done the speaking, so I don't have as much FOMO about these conferences anymore. I feel like I love to travel. I don't love to travel for work, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it didn't bother me too bad. I still slept in my own bed and thought, this is not bad either.
Yeah, no, I mean that is always a great event, but yeah, I especially now that I don't even get to go to sessions, I'm just like there at the booth pretty much the whole time. I'm like, yeah, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
It's not that fun. Um, but um, yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like, you know, I haven't actually had a role like that where I'm really focused on like it's really not broad like top of funnel. I need to reach as many developers as possible, so that seems like a really interesting challenge. So you only recently started there though, right?
Yeah, I've been there about a month, and it's a typical fire hose, but I am learning a lot of stuff, and I'm building like my own end-to-end application using the APIs and the spec so that I can have a better understanding of what developers experience when they try to build something with Plaid, so that I can turn that around and like find all the gaps and friction points and things, and like where our documentation needs to be updated, or more guides need to be created, or whatever, to like kind of make the whole experience better.
Yeah, for sure. I I'll bring up Charles's comment again. I feel like because it's kind of changing topic a little bit, but I agree with him completely. Like s- more and more, like it's getting harder to find conferences that are not like KCDC that are not they're community run to me, like and
Yeah.
and not owned by a company. Yeah,
the thing that's I think most fascinating about this whole like space of like the conferences and whatnot is and this is a new trend that drives me nuts, and I'm sorry if anybody's listening if their company does this. I have seen at 3 different conferences people selling swag, branded swag, like
Oh
company
no.
logo swag. Like
No.
I was like, what? And even like I had to ask because like at a like, sorry, Docker, I'm gonna out you right now, but like I was at, I think it was Google Next, and Docker was handing out these like beautiful desk mats, and I'm like, I'm a Docker user, I use it a lot. Can I have one, please? Because these look super cool. And they were like, they're for enterprise users only. And I literally was like, my demo for our booth is built on Docker, and they were like, fine.
Yeah.
Can you give us your email? And I'm like, why did I just feel gross? Like asking for desk mat. Thanks for okay, bye.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've now seen 3 conferences ask for selling swag, branded swag
Like for money?
for money.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Totally.
That's you said you were not gonna out them.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I don't get that either. And I also feel like you have to be very careful when you have swag that's like also like in the other case where it's very targeted to specific groups. Like you can't just have it out there and be like handing it out and then have it's just because then you end up in these awkward conversations where it's like, yeah, no, sorry, you're a customer, but not the right kind of customer for this swag. This swag is for different customers. It's like, or whatever. I've even gotten into this conversation, just about because swag is expensive. I get it. Like, and so you go to these events and then you end up giving everybody like a pair of socks that cost like $6, right? I mean, whatever. And then so it adds up, and so I can understand where from a budget standpoint they're like, well, don't give it to everybody, except that how do you have that conversation? You're like, yeah, thanks for stopping by the booth, but this conversation was not swag worthy. Move on. No
Like,
socks for you.
especially, yeah, I was like, bro, you're packing. I even told the person, I was like, this is the last day of the conference. You're packing it up and putting it in a box, and it's going to go sit on a shelf. I will give you my email, but like, okay, bye. I don't need a desk mat that bad. But you would have thought I was like, I just feel like sketchy for asking for a new desk mat. I was like, okay, then.
Yeah, not into that. I can, or charging for swag. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
So, have you ever worked, or what's the hardest you've ever worked for some swag? Like I remember, Okta did an event one time where we had like a little mini hackathon, like these exercises that people went through. And if you did the first part of it, you got a T-shirt. But if you did the second half of the exercise where you had to implement some APIs and there's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
But if you did it and you got to the final step where it showed, confirmation that you had done everything, then you got a hoodie. We ran out of hoodies because we were just blown away by how much work people were willing to put in to get that hoodie. It wasn't this one, but back in the day when Xamarin, before Microsoft acquired Xamarin, they did this cool swag thing where if you downloaded this project and you built the application, you solved the bugs that were in it, then you could order a T-shirt. And I got a C# T-shirt, I got an F# T-shirt. But if you found the Easter egg like if you were really digging into the code, you could find where you could unlock ordering a Xamarin Monkey. And like that was amazing. I had that monkey strapped to the back of my motorcycle for several years. Not this
idea.
one, but one like it.
I'm planning something for how we're gonna handle swag at reInvent. Now, I like the idea of an Easter egg to unlock like super premium swag. That because
Yeah.
we're gonna do something along the lines of a swag store. At least that's the current plan. Um, and where you can earn better swag by doing more stuff. Um, but um, but yeah, I hadn't thought about having like an Easter egg thing for like
Yeah. You could
maybe
have it on
somehow.
display and people are like, hey, how do I get one of those? I'm like, I'll give you a hint.
The one I'm obsessed with is this year at, was it what, Microsoft, one of the Microsoft conferences. And I saw all over YouTube and TikTok, and it like they hit me with the targeted ads. And then I had multiple friends get one, and I didn't go to this conference. And I literally was texting people being like, can someone do this for me? And they're like, no way. If I'm doing all that work, then I'm doing it for me. And I was like, rude. As they gave out the vintage keycaps that matched like the old 80s Microsoft branding. And I was like, that is, but you had to do like some like coding challenge, whatever, like history of the command line or something. And I had multiple friends like post about it. And I was literally, I had so much FOMO, couldn't get a pair. So if you're listening from Microsoft, I would really like some if you have any left over. But I was very excited about it. But I think the cool swag I've gotten recently, Postman gave me a rubber ducky that it says talk to me, which is kind of cute. And it's like a little space
Nice.
postman, which is kind of cute. And it's like fun.
Gotten like great swag in a while. I mean, maybe I stopped going and looking that much. I feel like the heyday of great swag was like, there was a point when, especially in DevRel, I remember like go to these events and it was just people were giving away everything. You still get a little bit of that at reInvent. reInvent is like insane. And to the point where people tend to go like literally grab like giant, but you see them bring extra suitcases to like bring home
Mhm.
all the swag that they take home. But
Yeah,
even there, it
AWS
has,
reInvent.
yeah. So like but even there, it hasn't been quite as amazing as it once was. Like I remember, I would go home. There was one. There was one I did a little bit of work, but it was maybe like 5 minutes, and they gave me like this like basically $100 Microsoft mouse that was like one of these ones that was flat, and then you could
Oh,
kind
you
of
could
bend it.
flatten it? I've
Yeah,
got one in a
and
drawer somewhere.
yeah, but at the time these were brand new and they were super expensive, and it's like, but they were giving away all kinds of stuff like that. So you could go home with really cool stuff. Yeah, Ray's reminding me. Oh my God, when you would, I I worked at Adobe, and when you go to Adobe Max, like you could I couldn't get it because I was an employee, but like they were giving away like brand new phones. Like yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like the latest Android phone was like you'd show up, you get it. Another year was every year I'm like, God, if I wasn't an employee, I could get that swag. And it was really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
I went to a Microsoft event one time in New York. It was some Visual Studio thing where we all got a, little, what did you call, what do you call them back then? The tablet PCs, the little,
oh yeah.
Oh, the surfaces.
it wasn't, it was before
Yeah.
Surface, but it was some kind of tablet PC. I guess that's what that was the term for it.
I got a Wacom at it was when I was in advertising. The Wacom like drawing tablets.
Oh really?
At
Yeah, those are not cheap either.
No, I got it at, it was like an AIGA. It was Command X, which was like a AIGA thing, but like I was a creative studio. It was either that or Shopify gave it to me. Shopify does good, like if you're in New York, the Shopify HQ in New York does do good events. So kudos to the Shopify DevRel team in New York City. They usually have really good events and really good swag.
Really good swag. Yeah. See, I mean, the amazing thing about like Max was here's like at the time it was fairly large conference at the time, and it was like 5,000 people, and they gave everybody a phone. It's like what? So anyway, yeah, I miss those days. I want cool free stuff. I mean, like I do love me some socks because I do wear socks. They're my branded socks, plenty of them, as long as they're nice ones, not those like some of them are like they're super cheap. Don't if you're gonna like I mean not to get we're all like now on the swag topic, but like I feel like if you're gonna go do swag, don't cheap out and do like the cheapo version. If you have t-shirts, like I'm not gonna wear your t-shirt unless it's a nice t-shirt. Like it's gotta be nice and soft. Otherwise it's going in a like it may get donated or something, but I'm not gonna wear it out. Like the only reason I'm not a except for obviously where I work, right? Like, but like other than that, I'm not gonna wear your brand on me unless I'm super comfy doing it.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to our swag person, Jackie. I love you because she's very much like no developers should just have plain black. Every developer has plain black t-shirts. So she made sure that we all who go to the conference crew does not have black t-shirts because every company does black t-shirts. Ours are burnt orange. Burnt orange. They're like the nice t-shirts. But one company I worked at did one of our company values was no cheap swag. And it was like, if you don't care about the little details, like the free stuff you give out, what else don't you not care about? And I was like, that's a good value. But anywho, we can talk about swag forever. I know that like getting on this topic, swag always feels like a DevRel topic that we could always talk to for hours. But I want to go into you actually have your own swag store, David, and you do some beautiful artwork, and that has its own like life, which that's how I first stumbled upon some of your work was through this like amazing visuals, and like I've always really appreciated it because I came from the agency world. In agency, it was very uncommon to have someone that was both very drawing, like you never had a designer that code. That was like a weird thing in my agency days. And so I've always really admired that. But how did that start?
Thank you. Yeah, so in recent years, it's been since I got into developer relations, I've discovered or not just discover, but I kind of always had like in the back of my mind, like, man, I wish I could do that. Like I had this desire. I would see a cool illustration or a comic or somebody's profile picture or a slide that had a cartoon on it and like, oh, I love that. I wish I could do that. And that went on for a long time. Like I said, I was involved in speaking at conferences and helping out with events and things before I got into developer relations myself. But I remember 2012, I think it was, I spoke at Codepalooza in Louisville, Kentucky. And there was a speaker there who, I didn't know anybody back then really. But I went to this speaker's presentation, and he had a bunch of really cool cartoon characters that he used throughout his presentation in his slides, and like a character that was like pointing at some code, as he was describing the code. And I thought, man, that is the coolest thing ever. And so I got up the courage because I didn't know speakers, then I got up the courage to go and talk to him after his session and like, hey, did you do those drawings? And I was kind of disappointed when he said, no, I have an artist, friend who I commissioned these from. Like, well, how much did it cost? And he's like, I think I paid like $50 a drawing or something like that. I'm like, yikes. Like, I don't have that kind of money or that kind of, in my mind, I was like, that was prohibitively expensive for me to like put into, one of my own talks or presentations or something. But that it stuck in my head. I'm like, man, I like that so much. And so it just kind of simmered in there. Around 2015, I was at the beginning of that year, I was kind of burned out. I had done like over 100 events by then. I had every meetup, every conference that I could get into within driving distance. Usually, is the only way I could justify it is to be able to drive there. I couldn't afford to fly to places. But I was speaking a lot, every chance I could. And I was getting better as a speaker, but I felt like I had just reached a plateau and I was getting burned out. And I felt like, man, I just need to take a year off or just quit this because I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I'm not getting any better. I'm not able to have an impact on my audience the way that I felt like I should be able to. And so in my existential crisis, I was looking at, ways to be a better speaker and searching through YouTube and books and things. And I came across a presentation called Show and Tell by Dan Rome. He gave this presentation at Google. It's on YouTube. And within the first 5 minutes, I was like, my mind was going, what is this? This is amazing. And it's like a 40-minute presentation. I watched it and rewatched it several times. And he made the case that you don't have to be an artist. If you can just draw silly stick figures, lines and arrows, shapes, you can make your presentations, far more interesting and visually appealing. And he just went into all the different benefits and stuff, but he really like drilled home the fact that you don't have to be an artist. You can just, your drawings don't have to be that good. They can just draw a stick figure and you can win people, and captivate an audience. And I thought, man, I want to try that.
I was going to say, I'm so sorry. I was trying to grab the name and I grabbed the name of the talk, but what's the speaker's name again?
Yeah, Dan Rome. I have several of his books back here, but the name of the book is Show and Tell, and he gave a presentation, basically a summary of that book. But that was the catalyst for me. I thought, well, I have this talk on Kanban that I need to deliver in a couple of months, and so I made a goal of like drawing some stick figures and using some silly stuff in my slides. I had an old iPad and a $5 stylus. I downloaded a couple of drawing apps from the App Store, and I just fell in love with it. As soon as I started creating illustrations, I couldn't stop, and I loved it so much. I ended up drawing almost every slide for that talk. And the day that I gave that talk, within the first 5 minutes, I knew everything was changed. Like my life at this point is completely changed. To call it a game changer, I guess.
Look out, Cascadia JS. I might be drawing my Cascadia JS talk now.
Yeah, it's
inspired.
Amazing. The audience engagement, the being able to use my own style of humor and tell stories and use just really terrible drawings, right? I mean, the apps that I was using, my skill, it was all terrible, but it was so captivating that I had more feedback and more reaction from that talk than I had gotten any other time. And so, like I said, I fell in love with it, and I started like using social media as my like practice in public. And I just, looked for every excuse to draw because I couldn't create a new presentation every week. So I decided I'll just draw silly stuff in tech. What do I know? I know JavaScript, and JavaScript is terrible. So I'll start making fun of JavaScript. So I started drawing a bunch of silly JavaScript stuff or, other related tech. And eventually my skills got better. I upgraded my iPad. I got the new Apple Pencil. And it eventually led to me being an artist. Like I kind of remember, like a couple of years afterwards that I was sitting in my office doodling something, and I had this realization, like, I can call myself an artist. I I just suddenly gave myself permission to like I can identify as an illustrator now,
Yeah.
and what an awesome experience it has been, and that has led to all kinds of cool stuff. You know, I've done stickers and T-shirts, and I've drawn illustrations for blog posts, and I've been commissioned to draw illustrations for lots of other people. I've drawn avatars. I drew a dad joke every day for a year, and turned that into a book. I
Wow.
always wanted to be I always wanted to be an author. I just never knew that it would be something like this instead of like how to use Node.js. You know, it's like didn't know I'd be.
Oh my God,
So
that's it, like such an because an amazing story because I always knew you like through a little bit through the artwork you did. And there was a point when I felt like everybody on Twitter, it was like suddenly their avatars were drawn by you. And and I saw like I followed you on social and you would post some of these drawings and stuff like that. And I'd always assumed somebody, we get a lot of like people who are artists who get into DevRel, like musicians,
yeah,
although you do that too. But like I'd always assume, hey, this is somebody who's always was into drawing and into artwork. I never
yeah,
never
no,
occurred to me that it was just like, hey, some mid-career thing that you saw a presentation and like and
yeah.
yeah.
So here's the perfect like fake it till you make it story. So uh, 20, I think it was the end of 2018, maybe 20, yeah, the end of 2018, I think it was. Or no, I'm getting my years mixed up. Anyway, before I started drawing avatars for people, that was something that like I drew myself that I put in my presentations, and I drew like two other people, and I was not good at it. And the drawings were terrible, but I got a little bit better, and I was taking some time off around Christmas, and I thought, well, I think it was when I had just got laid off. I can't remember. It was some kind of circumstance in my life, like where I had some free time on my hands, and I was like really frustrated and not in a good space. And so, Twitter was my friend back then. You know, Twitter was awesome back in the day, and I decided to run uh, a giveaway, and I drew it. It was like I want to force myself to draw more. So I did a giveaway on Twitter, and I drew a bunch of people. I picked the best ones, and I put that in a post and said, from now until Christmas, I'm running a sale, 25% off, and I'd never sold anything. Like I just I made up the story that I was giving people 25% off of my illustration work, you know, and to draw avatars. I had so many orders by between then and the end of the year that I was able to go buy an iPad, go buy a new iPhone. I mean, it, and I was had work backed up until like February. Um,
Oh,
and I
that's
was,
amazing.
like
This
it
is
was,
so cool.
it forced me to get better. I was still terrible at it, but it forced me to like, oh, I have to create a workflow. I have to like figure out how to take people's money. I have to figure out how to deliver this stuff to people so that they can use it. It was like a really force, what do you call it? It kind of forced my hand.
Forcing
It's like
function.
a
Yeah.
forcing function, right? So I had to figure out all this stuff in order to like become a professional illustrator overnight.
I
That's cool.
remember like when you did that, and it was like always so fun to see all the results coming through. Like I always that was always like the highlight. I was like, oh my goodness, I just love seeing this one come to life. It was so cool.
I
Yeah.
know,
So I've
yeah. You created this one. It was actually really smart because you started doing those avatars for people, and it created that FOMO. Like everybody's like, oh, I need to have that because everybody else is getting that. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised you had so many orders.
Yeah.
I once upon a time, I was working at Adobe at the time. I decided I was going to draw the entire slide deck, and I mean, I was thrilled with the result. Right, like I thought it was great, and I think people loved it. It just was, and maybe it was just a matter of practice because oh my god, it was so time consuming. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this again. It took me way too much time to create it. So I
Yeah,
never
it is
did
a
it
lot of
again.
work. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
is
is
a
a lot
lot
of
of
work.
work, but it does. All I can say is like with more practice, it gets easier and easier, and you figure out ways of like going faster and taking
Yeah,
shortcuts and things. But yeah, it's such a delight now. It's like any opportunity I get to create slides or do any kind of fun illustration work, I absolutely love it.
yeah, yeah. And I think it does. Like it forces you to think differently about the slides. That time I did it, it was like the because you were illustrating it, like sometimes you turn into a story or into like
Mhm.
something that was kind of outlandish, like silly,
Yeah. Yeah, you can
but you
tell the
can,
story the way you want to because you're not having to, like uh, change your story to match whatever clip art or something that you've found. And of course, AI is making that easier now. That of course, I would say that AI is like bland, and everybody recognizes that it's AI.
They all
It's
kind of
not
look the
as
same.
it's all
yeah,
yeah, it kind of all looks the same, so it's not as personal or unique as
no,
your own hand drawn illustrations. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's very, very rewarding. And I will continue to encourage people that if you have any interest whatsoever, if you look at something and you say, "Man, I wish I could do that," then figure out how to do that.
yeah,
We as engineers, if you've it's like learning any other skill. Like the first time you learn a new programming language, or a new framework, you're terrible at it. It's like you don't know. You look at someone else who's able to create something with it, and you're like, wow, that's magic. How did you know to do that? Well, they knew how to do that because they had spent time, figuring out all the ways that don't work. They made all the mistakes. They've learned, what works for them. It's the same with any other skill. Like you want to learn to play a new musical instrument. You want to learn to draw. You want to learn a new spoken language. Whatever that skill is, you're going to be terrible at it for a while. But on the other side is like incredible rewards of, being able to learn that skill. And the more you, use that muscle, the better you're going to get. There are some, like natural talent for doing some things, but natural talent will only get you like this much, right? The good stuff is attainable by anyone. And you're not going to be Michael Jordan, basketball level, at some, most things, right? But you can get good enough at whatever it is that you want to do to have like a lot of satisfaction and be able to have success.
yeah. That's a really great message. Um,
I'm
I
like
guess
over here, like this is the best thing we could have heard today. Don't worry, everybody. That's exactly how I learned TypeScript. Just kidding. There was a lot of swear. There was a lot more. I did not. Did I want to get good at TypeScript? No, there was swearing involved. A lot of swearing in that one.
yeah. Well, TypeScript's easier now with speaking of things that are easier with AI.
Yeah.
Like
Speaking of, yeah, instead of
I
having
write
these,
my TypeScript with like, oh yeah, there's tons of type errors, but you know what?
yeah,
I'll fix those later.
yeah.
Speaking of skills that people picked up and became really good at, well, though I've never tasted the proof, but I will. Is that we have our resident fermentation expert here, who is
Uh,
gonna like it's time for our
it's the most important
pickle
time of the
fact of
day.
the pickle fact of the day. So we're gonna turn it over to Erin. And so David, in case you know, like Erin did something similar. Like I guess it was during COVID, you said, right? The story
Yeah,
was
so
telling where
everybody was
COVID.
making everybody was into the sourdough. And I was actually, so my last semester of grad school, I started grad school in 2018. So my final semester was spring 2020. Naturally, we went remote. And I was actually in a class I took my master's in media business and innovation. So I did not study technology things, but I was in a class. One of my like electives I took was resiliency and policy and survival. Did I know there was a pandemic happening at the time? No, but it made the class actually way more interesting. But one of the things, this whole premise of this class was like, if you could, like, the world was wiped for magnet. We're starting from scratch. How do we build the best society with policies and infrastructure and historical context as possible? But when we went remote because of the pandemic, one of the things we were challenged to do is to actually go and do things to see like how far could we get on ourselves. So we did like microcomputing challenges. Like there's an open source Wi-Fi network here in New York City. So we maintained Wi-Fi things on building tops and like went to the ocean and learned about like oysters and how do you rebuild an oyster bed and like what local policies and political things do you have to do to make it in consideration. But there's a bunch of graduate students and PhD students basically getting to geek out on weird things in New York City for a semester and learn about like what are the policies that relate to this for resiliency. And one of the things we talked about was actually food storage and like food policy and the FDA and like historically, how would you rethink about this? And so I got into fermentation and I did a whole 6 to 8 weeks researching the bacteria that could survive without refrigeration and the pros and cons of natural lactobacillus fermentation. My husband thought I was crazy at the time, or my then fiance thought I was crazy because it was our New York City apartment and I had taken out all of the pantries because you have to grow it in the dark. And so we only had 3 cabinets that closed and I took out everything out of these cabinets that closed to turn it into my fermentation shelf. He thought I was nuts. And then I built so I made micro computing like salinity makers for each of these to check different salinity levels. The pickles were great and tested different types of bacteria. TLDR, I still picked up this habit and have kept it for years. There are pickles in my fridge right now, 3 different types.
I don't think I've ever gotten the full origin story of.
Yeah, that was it. It was just, and
fermentation. That's interesting.
It was, some people did cheese and yogurt, and like I just found one of the resources because it was like look at different historic. It was like choose a thing. Like you can look at like food storage, you can look at whatever. But yeah, that was the assignment, was look at different policies that impact distribution of food, and like how do we regulate that, and how do you think about it at scale and optimize for both like community health, but also like what are the pros and cons. And then our professor was very into us like learning and doing things itself. Like some people went scavenging in Central Park, which I was kind of like, I am not doing that. I am not much of a germaphobe, but like you could not get me to go scavenging in Central Park. Sorry, no way. So I was gonna grow mold in my kitchen cabinets. But yeah, that was the full story.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I think I want to learn. Yeah, I think I want to learn to make my own kimchi now. I think that would be cool.
It is so same process, same bacteria types, which gets us to our fun fact of the day, the pickle fact of the day. There is actually a type of, so when you grow and ferment things, it is often a yeast. So the same yeast, it's the lactobacillus, same one that's in yogurt, same one that's in milk, is actually really common in pickles as well. There's usually a handful of different yeasts and bacteria that make it, but there's also typically a fungi as well. So there's usually a lactic acid bacteria, and then there's fungi, which some yeasts are considered a fungi. But there's one called a Pichia yeast, Pichia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. So when you think of a fermented food, so think of your kimchi or for me, I do Bloody Marys. I've got pickled asparagus in my fridge right now and pickled cornichons, little tiny ones. They are basically determine like the aroma that comes when we think of the pickled or fermented food. So anything but the same bacteria whether it's a fruit or a beer or a kimchi or a yogurt, is responsible. The only thing that's different is the environmental factors and the alcohol content in it, which can change if it is a fruity smell or a more solventy smell. And that's how they like categorize it. But it's purely on the molecular pathways that are formed on the environmental factors. So it is down to like that molecular level. So that's one of the things, like when you do fermentation, sometimes you get a starter already. And so your starter can make so much of a difference in the aroma. But it does not impact the taste, apparently. According to researchers, the environment will impact the environment of this yeast specifically will change the aroma, but the aroma won't inherently change the taste, even though we know that smell and taste have similar whatevers. But it's all based on the enzyme activity and like the micro pathways of these bacteria that cause it to grow.
Okay. That is like the pickle fact that like went way over my head.
There also is like strains that are patented for different aromas in beverage, like beer. So they will patent this Pitchia yeast strain. And actually, one of the best things I've ever done was I was at Strange Loop. I went to the Budweiser factory, which is they've had the same yeast since the start of time, and during Prohibition they used it to make bread. But the same, like there's actual like patents that you can go and look up on yeast strains.
Wow. Okay. All right. I had no idea.
Now you know. So, the more you know, and it's all about their
more you know.
Microbiology of them all and how fast they digest alcohol. Don't ask me more than that because I'm going to be honest. I took physics instead of biology in college. That's like the most science I've done is in the open source fermentation handbook from Washington State University.
All right, this was great. I learned so much actually. I loved your story, David, about how you got into drawing. That was just a really great story. You should make it, like, I don't know if you've already done, but that should be a talk. Like, I think it's a really great, like, inspiring, like, keynote-worthy type of story. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I've included some of my story in some of the talks that I've given, but yeah, that's a good idea.
I think there's a lot of relevant lessons in there, like that you kind of tied it into that, like it just can really be the kind of thing you'd expect from a keynote, like inspired. So yeah, great story. Erin, you were going to say something.
No, I was just like, thank you so much. That was so great. I feel all warm and fuzzy, and I'm now going to be inspired and even more. Yeah. So thank you.
And Erin, I love finally getting the full detail of your pickling origin story.
Your origin story, yes.
My ferment, and yeah, it just was something that I enjoyed so much that I did it. There is a very infamous talk I gave when I was working at Orbit that somewhere that I told everybody about cool mold, and I gave a whole 30-minute internal team talk on the science of mold for this. Okay. They canceled internal talks after that because I showed pictures of mold for 35 minutes.
The thing I learned though is that I need some better hobbies. But yeah. Anyway, thank you both. Well, Erin, you're kind of obligated to be here. This is your show too. But thank you, David, for being here with us. This was really great. I really enjoyed the talk, and thanks everybody for joining. Really hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. We will be back next month. What day? I don't know. With who? I don't know either. We will figure that out. But you can follow cfe.dev and you'll find out. All right. See y'all later.
Bye, y'all.